Week 1 NFL is behind us, and I'm playing a road game today because my inept internet company has failed me miserably. So I am playing a road game over at the very nice Ralph Michaels pad, where he's letting me use his audio media setup. So enough of that. We want to go back. We don't want to waste time. Let's go. What did we learn from week 1?
What did we learn from week 1? Well, we learned that a lot of quarterbacks treated week 1 as preseason week 4 because we saw what, yards per completion, in some cases incredibly low, 7 yards per completion, 8 yards per completion, 115 yards, 102 yards, 82 yards. Sacks were up like crazy. Offensive line continuity. The sack thing was really astounding to me, and it just shows how fast defenses have become.
Ron, your volume's low. Turn it up. Or get closer to the microphone.
Oh, no. My volume is low. Okay. Well, let me see what I can do. It could be the connection that you're having over there. I don't know.
Yeah, blame me.
Yeah, might as well. We'll blame you for a good weekend, though, last week. Congratulations. You analyzed week 1 very nicely, worked through all the garbage and the minutia, and every week's another challenge, but you got to look back and see that one was pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It feels good to have done that. It did well in the contest, and but you're only as good as your next bet. So the Lions and the Chiefs, I don't think we learned a thing. We didn't expect to learn anything. I don't think we learned anything. And would you disagree?
For the Lions? No, I didn't learn anything in that game. Obviously, the Lions were playing without, or the Chiefs were playing without 2 key players. Could have gone either way. Certainly no adjustment on my part.
I was happy to see the Lions win. I kind of inferred that I drank the Kool-Aid, but I really thought that they could win. And when Kelsey was announced out, I got aggressive and I took season wins over, which I considered a free roll because that was an expected loss, and it paid off. Carolina, Atlanta, we did not expect to learn anything or make any major adjustments on my side. I'm going to stand by that. Carolina lost by 2 touchdowns, but for various reasons, I'm not downgrading them, and I'm not upgrading Atlanta. How about you?
No, I made no changes in that one. A little disappointed in Atlanta, again, not getting to the opposing quarterback. Even so, Bryce Young looked like a rookie in his first start. Teams played as expected, kind of a low-scoring game. 2 teams that had a combined 4 starts at quarterback before this season. Teams are still going to have to learn how to win. Atlanta's got the easy schedule. We'll see what happens, but certainly no change for me.
I expected a better performance from Houston. They did not as well as I expected, but they held tight. But I think that was more of a Baltimore issue than a Houston issue. Baltimore comes out of this game so dinged up that we have to downgrade them based on that alone, unfortunately. And I'm back in the same old saddle I was last year with conditioning and injuries. What about you?
Yeah, Baltimore's cluster injuries seems like a fact of life. I mean, we're talking about 2 offensive line starters that are almost for sure going to miss this next week. They lost a key secondary member for at least 3 or 4 weeks. Dobbins for the season. And that guy, I always chart yards per carry with running backs. It's very important for me. Dobbins was the guy that could generate that yards per carry that Baltimore needs to unleash Lamar Jackson in the pass game with all the new weapons and the new coordinator. All that's gone now. We have to start from square one with Baltimore. As far as Houston's concerned, taking nothing away from that. That's the toughest opponent an offense could have had to face week 1. I'll learn more about Houston moving forward. I do think C.J. Stroud had a better than what I thought he was going to do. 28 of 44, I think, well in excess of 200 yards. I was surprised at that. And the fact that he threw no interceptions, possibly Houston's going to be more competitive than I thought they would be.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I did use a contest entry on Houston plus 10.5, and I thought it would come within that 10-point range. Jacksonville Colts, wild game, crazy happenings. Colts did not get the cover, but I'm not changing any. I don't think we learned anything about these teams, frankly.
I did not learn a thing about it. We knew Jacksonville on the road with higher expectations. It wasn't going to be a cakewalk. And, it's Indy's first game with a very raw quarterback. Impressed that he was able to extend plays. Know he's going to miss a few wide open targets because he had 13 college starts. But all in all, no changes for me.
Tampa Bay and the Vikings. I avoided those Vikings teasers. Something smelled off about this game. I think we discussed that Tampa Bay is going to, you actually used the word pesky, and would not just be the laydowns. And you were right. And I thought it could possibly go that way. Didn't expect the outright victory. I thought Tampa was able to do this, so I'm not upgrading them. And the Vikings, I'm not going to ding them down quite yet, but certainly some concern.
Yeah, we talked about this last week, and especially as the week went on, we're starting to think that because Minnesota didn't have a shutdown defense, they were vulnerable in this game. The odds certainly came down, made it no chance for me to get involved in this particular game. What I learned about Tampa is that they're a veteran team. And with Baker Mayfield, it's a low ceiling, but it's also a very high floor. And they could hang with a team like Minnesota, who has so many defensive question marks. Now, should Minnesota have won the game? Probably yes. All the Cousins' mistakes in the first quarter, -3 turnovers. That was an issue. So Minnesota was probably the better team. But what I learned about Tampa is that maybe I was a little too low on them, because I think with the experience on their team and with Baker Mayfield, a veteran quarterback who knows what he can do, and he doesn't, let's say he wouldn't have been like Josh Allen yesterday, in that I think Baker knows his limitations a little bit more. And I think they're going to hang in some games. So I will upgrade Tampa just a little because I was lower on them to begin with.
Titans and the Saints. Boy, is that a frustrating game. Tennessee definitely should have done a little bit better. And the Saints, that's a tough way to lose a cover. Some just odd happenings there. I'm not dinging either team or promoting either team. Exactly the kind of game I thought was possible.
Congratulations to everybody who bet over 7.5 field goals in that game, because that's what we got. Just, that game played out exactly the way I would have thought. And Mike Vrabel, who knows the rules inside out and knows everything about this game, now he's gone a year with me perplexed about his play calling and his decision-making on 3rd and 4th downs. There were some times that he should have punted, that he shouldn't have punted. I'm a little down on him from an offensive point of view, and he is a defensive guy. I think he wasted an opportunity to take advantage of New Orleans and their own play calling issues. These teams played exactly the way I thought they would. I squeaked out a cover in that particular game. Appreciate it, because it was kind of a weird game.
Do you make anything that the other back had more touches than Henry, and Henry was not in on a lot of the key downs?
Yeah, week one player usage is just crazy. We talked about a lot of the rookies and Jamar Gibbs for Detroit not getting a lot of carries, and that was by design. I was perfectly acceptable with that. Henry was surprising. I thought, even if you don't want to use him running the ball, he's a better decoy than a rookie running back. You bring him in so that somebody has to be there because he's a bowling ball when he gets going. Henry's also a better blocker at this point in time. I think it was poor management, and I think he made some comments. The coach made some comments. Look for increased usage right away because the team recognizes this, and he's going to get 19, 20 carries again this coming week.
Yeah, who would he stack up Tannehill's poor performance to?
The fact that he's regressing, the fact that his receivers are relatively new to the team and not running perfect routes, the fact that his offensive line is a little bit below average. A lot of factors there. They need Henry to set up the run game, but Tannehill is to the point where I think we know this is his last year in Tennessee. And one of those two guys that they drafted in 2022 or 2023, they better step up because I do not expect Tannehill to be there this year. I think Tannehill's value this year was supposedly that the other guys in the league, Houston and Indianapolis, they're so young at quarterback that Tennessee could sneak into the playoffs this year. But now I don't know. They have to play a little bit better. We know they're going to hang tough, but are they going to win the close games? That's the question.
I kind of got the banana in the tailpipe feeling about the Steelers, and I didn't end up using them in the contest. But I certainly felt that they would be able to stay within teaser range, and that was, a lofty goal. 49ers came to play. They were impressive. The Steelers dinged up heavily. They gave up the run in bushels. A lot of concern there with the Pittsburgh team right now. I didn't think we'd learn anything on this, but it's hard not to tick the 49ers up just a tad and ding the Steelers just a little bit.
Yeah, interesting game. Certainly unexpected from my end since I had the Steelers in the particular game. I didn't learn that much about the Steelers other than that they couldn't take advantage of what I thought would be the weakest link in San Francisco's arsenal, and that's the pass defense. That didn't happen. The run game was non-existent again for Pittsburgh. But my takeaway from this game was McCaffrey is probably the best non-quarterback person out there as far as if you're looking at MVP status right now. I mean, that guy did everything. He was unstoppable, even from a Pittsburgh team that looked like they were prepared going into the season. I was extremely impressed with San Francisco, and I did move up San Francisco 30-7 on playing at Pittsburgh, veteran team, fired on all cylinders. Brock Purdy looked like he hadn't even been hurt. And we were worried about what his status was going to be week one. The defense didn't seem to miss a beat. I think San Francisco's performance was the best performance of any team this past Sunday, and I can't discount it.
And one of the first time of many of this season, I was amazingly impressed by the San Francisco receiver. The name escapes me at the moment.
Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, Ayuk. Monster job. He not only did he do it on with the ball, but he made some incredible plays, opening up the field for others that had the ball. Some very excellent play.
Yeah, it's a luxury for a team to have a guy like Deebo Samuel who could break games on his own, a guy like George Kittle who's a top 3 tight end. Ayuk is coming on by leaps and bounds. And then you have McCaffrey in the backfield who's more than just a runner. I mean, when you have 4 targets like that, it is absolutely crazy, the embarrassment of riches and the game planning that could go on.
Arizona, Washington, that was about what I expected out of that game. Can't really learn anything. Arizona didn't come to lay down. Washington didn't show up in force and show that they're anything more than what a lot of people felt they would, sort of an also-ran. So a nothing burger game for me.
Yeah, I can't say too much about this. Disappointed in Sam Howell. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Very disappointed. He went right back to earth against an Arizona team that doesn't have a lot of talent, but obviously 0-0 week one, they're going to be trying. And it was as if Sam Howell hadn't played the game of football, And I know he made a couple of good throws, but very inconsistent.
Let's talk about your Bears.
Yeah, my Bears laid an egg. Obviously, I was wrong on that game. We did talk on Friday. Obviously, I thought Green Bay would win more games this year. I thought Chicago would not be that good this year. But in this game, this situation, I thought the cards were in their favor. I'm disappointed in the coaching staff. Taking Justin Fields aside, I'm disappointed in the way Chicago played defense. I'm disappointed in the way Chicago handled the game. I am impressed that Jordan Love has taken the next step. Those 3 years of development did work out great for him. But I really got to say, this Chicago team, it was more than Justin Fields. It was the whole team that let down in a situation that I thought they had to have and that they were ready to go. This is a problem for me, and I don't want to overreact because I don't want to be one of those guys that say, wow, I expected so much from Chicago, so now I'm going to fade them the rest of the year. It's just that this is warning bells all over the place for me, saying that if I don't see better coaching from this team, I have a problem.
That makes sense. I did drink some of your Bears Kool-Aid and kind of backed off of my luster for the Packers, but I just didn't bet him as hard as I would have because you made just some good points, and I agree with what you said. The Raiders and the Broncos, I actually came around, and as time went by throughout the week, realized that the Raiders were going to be a very solid play here. I regretted not having more +4, +4.5. I did get some teasers in, and I did actually suck it up and take the crap line of +3. Although neither of these teams were that impressive, quite frankly, the Broncos, there were, we did see Wilson show signs of life, at least to some degree. So that's kind of a good sign, but there's something wrong with that team. I can't put my finger on it. Neither of these teams were impressive.
So one of the most amazing stats in football seems to be that Jimmy G just finds ways to win games. I don't know how, but it's only one game with the Raiders, and this still, the Raiders have holes. When you start off the game by an onside kick like Sean Payton and Denver did, to me, that signals, wow, I don't really trust my team. I'm going to use the element of surprise, and I'm going to do this. And when you let Russell Wilson not cook, he wasn't even in the kitchen. I mean, Russell Wilson, what did he throw, like 6 yards per completion or something? Sean Payton kept him out of harm's way almost the entire game. And I think that relationship is going to be really tricky to watch. Very disappointed in what Denver brought to the table week 1. Obviously, if they valued the kicking game more and didn't get rid of their kicker from last year, who understands the altitude and everything, they would have made an extra point in a field goal. They probably would have won the game. These are two teams that are just going to scramble week in and week out. And every once in a while, they're going to scratch out a win. Very incomplete teams. Remember, the AFC is still loaded, even though a lot of your favorites lost this week. I mean, you're talking about Buffalo lost a game, Kansas City lost, the Chargers lost, Cincinnati lost. So on the one hand, you say, wow, the Raiders are 1-0 and Denver could have been 1-0. But on the other hand, as teams get more acclimated after the preseason, Denver lost a golden opportunity in this game.
They sure did. And I've got some alt-season wins over on the Broncos that I'm not too happy I own at this point. The Dolphins and the Chargers, Jesus, I'll tell you, watching Tua, boy, if he stays healthy, they're dangerous. That guy pulls stuff out of his rump. Hard to catch, makes throws that look like they're always going into the ground, but somehow the receivers catch it. The Chargers have some real problems. Their defense is no good. I expected more out of the Chargers. The Miami, I thought, could play that well. I'm not dinging either team yet. I think we need to just get another win, another game under their belt. But the Chargers were disappointing a little bit.
Yeah, we talked about how good a game this would be to watch, and it sure was. It was pretty exciting. You got two quarterbacks who could, even if these defenses were a little better, would still probably put up numbers. These were two quarterbacks that were ready to go. Tua, speed kills, and Miami's built for speed. And you run those slant patterns over the middle, and Tyreek Hill, 215 yards, all those catches. Obviously, the Chargers coaching staff is still not what we would call the greatest coaching staff in the world. And so, in a toss-up game, you take Miami's coaching staff over the Chargers coaching staff. If Tua can stay healthy all 17 games, and this is something we talked about, they're a playoff team. There's no question about it. And maybe the NFC's, the AFC's winner now with the issues that just happened with the Jets. On the other hand, the Chargers are a playoff team too. But if they're going to lose more close games than they win, they're going to settle for second best in the division. So I think both these teams are good. They're not quite great yet. They're good. And I think it's just so refreshing to see Tua healthy and to be able to use all those weapons. I really enjoy watching them.
Yeah, it sucks to have money against him, I'll tell you. You definitely want to be on his side when he's healthy. Eagles and Patriots, what a gosh-awful, frustrating game for Patriots backers. At one point, it looked like we were getting blown out of the building as a Patriots backer, and then it was all but assured the Patriots were either going to win or at least cover. And I got the push on 5 for my wager, but contests were no good. And I think the Eagles were exactly about what I expected them to be, a little bit flat, not impressive. Unfortunately, they come out with a handful of injuries. That's not going to help them out. And the Patriots did some things well and some things not well at all. But about what I expected. What about you?
First of all, shout out to Treasure Island for hanging a 5.5 when I was in Vegas at the end of July, because that was important. I also bet it at 5, so it's kind of a win and a push. And that's where the value, we knew this all off season, that New England was the situational and technical play. What happened though is for New England, preseason did matter. And the fact that they started their quarterback, for a handful of snaps the whole preseason, and they didn't really use their starters to where I thought they should. And I wrote that up in my preview. New England gave away the game in the first quarter and then played like we thought they would, close to the vest. We know year in and year out, they play week 1 games that are really close. They're fundamentally sound on defense. They pretty much bottled up Hurts, who didn't have any running room. Really nobody on Philadelphia, if I remember correctly, had a great offensive game. Their tight end was completely shut down. So New England was probably the team that should have won the game, if not for giving away all those points in the quarter. And then perhaps a strategy decision that Belichick himself said that he wished he had back when they were down 5, that they could have cut it to 2. They thought they could get the ball back. And with that defense, you can get the ball back with that amount of time left. And it was 4th and 12 or 4th and 17 after a penalty. So basically, we had the right side and New England was the right side, but there's little margin for error without Tom Brady in the building and Rob Gronkowski in the building. You don't have your go-to guys anymore, Bill Belichick. So you've got to get every decision right now.
Their defense held up pretty well, and I was kind of worried about that. They did a much better job on defense once they got their act together. The Rams and Seahawks, wow. I mean, I said that I thought the Rams could win outright. I wavered on that when we knew Kupp was out, but I still thought they would still be a cover, but this says more about Seattle than it does the Rams. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, first of all, good tab on your part. You really nailed this particular game. I stayed on the sidelines. I thought the Rams had value in the point spread according to my power numbers, but I just couldn't back them week 1. They didn't show anything. But what I learned from this game, and I did bump up the Rams number, is that Matthew Stafford, even though he didn't play in the preseason, may be the healthiest he's been in 3 years. And a healthy Matthew Stafford automatically makes him a strong NFC quarterback if you compare him to the rest of the NFC quarterbacks. If he stays healthy, I expect defensive regression from the Rams. I don't know what happened to Seattle. Geno Smith came back to earth, whatever the case may be. But on offense, if Stafford is relevant, and considering he used a rookie receiver as his focal point, and that guy was drafted on the third day, I think. So that really elevates the Rams for me, even though I already thought there was some value in the point spread. And we'll talk about the Rams in San Francisco coming up later on Friday.
Who's the best quarterback in the NFC?
Well, Stafford put himself in the discussion. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be the best for a lot of people, but he has a year and a half of stats sheet, whereas Stafford has done this for a decade. Kirk Cousins, Stafford and Cousins, you'd take Stafford if he was healthy, if he throws like this. It's, Stafford really elevated himself right away.
I think in his current shape, he's the number one quarterback in the NFC at the moment. Cowboys, Giants, boy, what a disaster. The Dallas came to play. The Giants shot themselves in the foot. They've got no offensive line. Where do they go from here?
Well, this was probably my one regret of last week. And that's not taking the Cowboys, knowing that they have the great history there, knowing that the Giants were exposed by every offensive team they played last year. Didn't necessarily get better, even though I love their draft. They still started 2 rookies, including a 6th-round draft choice in the secondary. And then Daniel Jones was pressured with Dallas, the number 2 sack team in the NFL, and was the offensive line of the Giants, no match for him. Daniel Jones reverted back to internal clock management, internal clock issues in terms of evading the rush, and it was a no contest. These teams are just light years apart from each other right now.
The Bills and the Jets. I think that Jets defense is for real. I think we learned that. Allen better get his act together. That was embarrassing. I mean, that whole game is on his errors, and I don't know how the hell the Jets, stayed within the teaser, let alone won the game. But thank goodness they did. Are you docking the Bills yet, or are you going to give them a free pass?
I'm giving them a free pass because I think, but I'm not giving their head coach a free pass. When Rodgers left the game, it's just crazy the fact that they didn't go into mode where you would burn clock, run, take Josh Allen's crazy throws away from him. And, certainly it could have been 13-3 and lights out. But with the turnovers, giving the Jets and the Jets crowd life, just amazing to me what happened in that game. I thought the game management for Buffalo was completely off. So I will ding their coach. I might ding them maybe a half a point in the power rating because that was a game that was in their hands. I don't know. I don't know what else to say other than that was an opportunity that Buffalo lost.
Why don't you take over week 2? Guide us through week 2 and what you'd like to talk about.
Okay. Mini Philly is this Thursday. I thought the line set was accurate. I think the fact that Philly won week 1 without playing their best game is a perk for Philadelphia. Personally, I think Minnie has some work to do. I think their defense is going to be exposed in this particular game. I think Cousins will be fine as long as that offensive line holds up. But I would worry personally about the Minnesota defense. What about you?
Yeah, I think Philadelphia, especially after coming off of playing New England, Philadelphia is going to find the Viking defense a little bit more hospitable. But I also think that the Vikings are going to be able to offensively be okay. It's a short week. You've got a bunch of Eagle injuries in key spots. We'll have to see whether they're going to be able to make the game. So I think it's going to we have to see how it maps out with who's playing, who's not playing. But at least it's a good Thursday night game for once.
Yeah, Bradbury, the cornerback, is in concussion protocol, and this being Thursday, I don't expect him to play if the NFL values safety at all, which means we could see a lot of points in this game. Chargers, Tennessee, line is 3. Not unexpected by me. That's where I set it. Once again, I think Tennessee's pass defense is going to be in a little trouble in this particular game. I think you do see a heavy dose of Henry in this game because you want to keep the Chargers offense off the field. Chargers played fairly well against an average to below average Miami running attack. We knew that coming in, but this will be a bigger test for the Chargers run defense. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very interested to see how the Titans, I believe the Titans are going to have a lot more success this week. I think it's another interesting matchup, how each of these teams respond to the previous game, because it's 0-1, 0-1. So can't afford to go 0-2. Yeah. I could see reasons for both teams playing better. I really think you'll get a better performance out of both teams. I'm not done. I want to do some more work on the game. I've got conflicting views on it.
Yeah, I agree with the more work, and I agree. Each team has one game under their belt. We should see better performances for most teams across the board. Green Bay has been bet from the openers against Atlanta, and one of these teams is going to be full of confidence after next week because one of these teams is going to be 2-0, and neither of these teams at the beginning of the year, well, I guess you'd say Atlanta, because of their soft schedule in the division, were expected to make the playoffs, but now both of them have a legit playoff chance. Jordan Love's going to have a clean pocket again in this game because Atlanta just doesn't rush the passer. Does that sway you? What are your initial thoughts in terms of this game?
I think it's really easy to overvalue Green Bay based on the ease of victory against the Bears. And I'm not buying the cheesehead Kool-Aid yet. I don't want to upgrade Green Bay, even though they did well. I kind of expected them to be able to do that. Until you manipulated some doubt last week. But in the Falcons, they were not that impressive to me. So this is a game that Atlanta's supposed to win, frankly.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go to Indy Houston. Fascinating game because you got the two.
Can you get closer to the microphone or something?
Okay. Yeah, something's going on because maybe it's because you're operating under a different system, but I'll try to shout.
Okay.
Indianapolis, Houston, both rookie quarterbacks, I thought overachieved week 1. It's going to be an exciting game, probably which defense comes to play in this particular game. I kind of like this game, and I do want to study this game more. I think it's going to be entertaining. What do you think on this one?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think both of these teams are better than we thought that they would be, even though it didn't end well for the Colts last week. I mean, they should have had that. They should have had that game closer. They could have covered, couldn't they? I forget. They ended up on the 1-yard line. Maybe it was a teaser I was involved in, but yeah. Who's the better defense, though? Who do you have rated the better defense?
I think in the short run, Houston's going to play better defense because their head coach is really more of a defensive-minded guy. He's proven as a defensive coordinator. I thought the fact that Baltimore scored 25 points and didn't get the run attack going so much against Houston week 1 was a telling sign. It may be that we see that Indianapolis has some running issues. By the way, Indianapolis is looking at the scrap heap almost to get running backs. They don't have a viable running back unless Moss comes back from his arm injury. They are strapped. Their quarterback again, their rookie quarterback is going to lead them in rushing this coming week. Seattle, Detroit is next.
I did run my model, which I never do. I don't take it really seriously, but Houston didn't come out looking all that poorly. They did some things right. I'm sorry, what did you say about Seattle, Detroit?
Oh, I thought we were going on the other game, so yeah, I jumped the gun a little bit. Seattle, Detroit, my initial thought was maybe I have my Detroit power rating too low because I didn't anticipate the line coming out at the 5.5 and now 6 range. But obviously, part of it is a reaction to the fact that Seattle laid an egg last week. And part of it is just that maybe I'm a little low on Detroit's power rating. Where are you in terms of this game?
I think that you have to have a legitimate concern without overreacting that the Seattle team may have some problems, which I thought might be the case. But they do get healthier this week, I believe. They'll be focused. I think the Lions and Kansas City played crap. They just both played poorly. The Lions got away with it. It showed their preseason rust was not gone. So that first half was kind of sloppy. Kansas City didn't score a touchdown in the second half. I think you have to give a little kudos to the Detroit defense. They were trying some stuff that was really causing Mahomes some problems because they expected to be able to get certain types of passes in, and they didn't have them. And they cut him off at the knees and made him go and use second choices and do other things that were not part of their game plan. So I find that pretty interesting. I think that's quite an accomplishment that the Lions go in there, they win, and they weren't playing their best by any measure. So I'd look for a much better game from the Lions, a much better game from Seattle. That stadium is going to be loud, and Campbell's already egging on the crowd. It's going to be an event. The fans are excited. We've got an issue on the offensive line, whether Decker's going to play or not. He's not practicing, but the offensive line is so deep. And here's the strange thing, though. Even with that great offensive line and with Jones out, the Lions' offensive line wasn't as good as they normally are. A little bit more pressure on Goff than you would have expected without Jones in the lineup. The good news is another game with no interception. So Goff can break the NFL record, possibly this game. But more than likely next game, if I think neither team had a turnover, which is pretty good too. Yeah. So I'm going to have a tough time handicapping this game. I don't want to be a homer. I think the Lions will win this game. Do I want to lay 6? Probably not. But do I think they cover 6? I think they can.
Yeah, one more thought from me on this game. TJ Watt for Pittsburgh had 3 sacks. He's the best guy in the league right now, and there are other really good guys. But let's not sleep on Aiden Hutchinson because he is now in year 2 starting to be the kind of player that makes other players play better. And so his impact on this game and on the Lions defense will be something I chart. You and I, we take 3 or 4 weeks before we turn over and we get rid of our priors and stuff like that. If the Lions defense is performing the same way they are after 4 weeks, then there is a Hutchinson factor that I think plays into the equation with the Detroit defense better than I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, and the defensive scheming was smart. That came out of nowhere. I was surprised to see that they were befuddling Mahomes, and that we'll have to see. It's only one game; you can't overreact. They won the game like I thought they could. I think that they can win by a touchdown or more on this game, whether Decker's in or not. Bears and the Buccaneers.
Yeah, so the Bears and the Buccaneers, when you allow 38 points at home in game 1 to a team that has a bunch of guys who could barely be of drinking age at wide receiver and tight end, and a guy making his first meaningful start at quarterback, that's just an incredible worry for me. I think what we're going to find is that Tampa Bay is more fundamentally sound, but I don't know if Tampa's not a great team. I understand the line. That's where I said it. But I mean, can Chicago win the game? That's my question to you.
Well, and don't forget the Green Bay was dinged up. They weren't even whole. I mean, they could get Watson back in the lineup, and they could be a little bit stronger. But the Tampa Bay defense versus the Green Bay defense, shouldn't the Tampa Bay defense do a better job of containing Fields and also put the pressure on?
In the past, yes. Actually, last year they started to slip in that regard. And then this year, with their defensive-minded coach and maybe a couple of adjustments, they showed pretty good against the run week one. So maybe they revert back to the old Tampa Bay, we play this kind of defense where you can't run on us. And if that's the case, obviously, I think their game plan will be to force Fields to beat you through the air.
Yeah, that has to be their game plan, I would think, because he's not going to be able to. You let that guy get loose, you're done. Raiders and Bills. Boy, yeah. I'd hate to be going to Buffalo after last night.
Well, it's crazy because the Raiders could have lost, the Bills could have won. Now you've got a spread of still. I mean, the odds makers are respecting the Bills because that line is higher than what my power ratings show. So I would not have set it as high as 9.5. And it doesn't mean that I necessarily like Vegas. It just means, according to my numbers, I wouldn't have set it that high. So because of that, I have to take a deeper dive into what can Buffalo do better that justifies a line of 9 and 9.5.
Yeah, what?
Well, tell me, what can they do better? They could trust their run a little bit more. James Cook looked like he could get some holes in the Jets defense. Why are you testing Sauce Gardner and the rest of the defense so often when you're leading by a touchdown and the run game is open? I think they could do a better job at utilizing their 2 tight end system. They never ran 2 tight ends last year, and now they are with Kincaid, who's a hybrid wide receiver tight end rookie. So you feature him, but you didn't really use him for the third and short stuff that you could get the simple pass to a bigger target and not have Josh Allen throw into coverage.
Well, last year I think they ran 4% 2 tight ends, and then this week they were by far number one, over 65 or 70%. A huge shift for them. And then you mentioned Gardner. The first 5 times he threw on Gardner, the guy caught the ball. Gardner was a whiff the first 5 times, and those were nice gains. I don't know what happened after that because I couldn't watch the game anymore. I was so stressed out. So, my instinct is that that's too many points, and I always remember it just seems, and I can be wrong, but it just seems like there's always those early season Raider East Coast trips where you're writing them off for dead, and they're huge underdogs, and they somehow show up and play. It doesn't it seem like that happens every year?
Well, especially if you got a team 1-0 that thinks that they're going to do something and thinks that they've been disrespected. So why wouldn't Vegas put out their best effort in this particular game? Being that Jimmy G used to be in that division, he's familiar with Buffalo. He's played in that stadium, or at least he's been in that stadium, so he knows that. So if Buffalo does blow them out, it's not because they're not familiar with the surroundings, that they're not on their best behavior in terms of their game and focus. The Raiders are going to be focused. Now we have to figure out if they're good enough.
Yeah, I agree. We were talking about if they go 0-4, they'll scrap the season. But if they go 2-0, they're going to be pressing. So it'll be good news for them.
2-0 on the road. Pretty good. And Vegas, for all their excitement at home, they're not a great home team versus a spread. So every game they can get is important to them. Next game is very important. Kansas City and Jacksonville. Jacksonville, by the way, lost twice to Kansas City last year. Once in the regular season and once after having that lead, and they almost had Kansas City on the ropes. We almost saw Jacksonville in the Super Bowl the way they were going in terms of putting together that 1 year removed from Urban Meyer. And now Chris Jones is signed. Travis Kelce, we don't know whether he's going to play or not. Jacksonville is down two offensive linemen now. They're going to lose one of their starters, and Robinson is already out for 4 weeks. So Kansas City's going to bring a pass rush again. What's your initial thoughts on this game?
I saw the 2.5 there, and I started to punch it in, firmly believing that we're going to see the 3, and it was going to be a numbers play for me. And I don't know what it is. I kind of had it in my mind that the Chiefs were going to sputter, and they certainly sputtered last week. And I believe even if they get Kelsey and Jones in the lineup this week, there could be some more sputtering. I believe Jacksonville will be coming to play. Like you said, there's a little bit of a limp with them. Lots of revenge, home opener. I just would like to play the Jags. I can find a case to play both sides. So I think I'm likely going to sit this one out.
Yeah, I want to do more research. I think this is going to be the game that intrigues me the most, at least at first glance, for coming up this particular week. And it's an important game. And Jacksonville could possibly stamp themselves as right in the thick of the number 1 seed. And we shouldn't be talking about number 1 seed going into week 2. But if Kansas City did start 0-2, that would be interesting.
Especially with the way they've...
Yeah, I don't know if we should talk about Baltimore-Cincy too much, because that's going to be a Sports USA game on Friday. That's one of the two.
Let's leave that. There's so much going on with that game and the injuries and such. It's better to talk about on Friday anyway. So I agree.
Yeah, let's skip it. Let's go right to the fascinating, scintillating game. New York Giants at Arizona. Crowd's going to be wild. Super Bowl on the line. The Giants just came off of a 40-0 whitewash. They didn't look the part at all. Arizona hung with Washington. But can we, this is one of those week 1 overreaction kinds of things where you see a team win week 1 and then they go 0-17, they're 0-16 the rest of the way. Arizona didn't win, but they almost did. But I didn't elevate Arizona from that game. I don't think anybody elevated Arizona from that game. What can the Giants do better to erase last week's tape?
That's just the type of game that you put behind you. I didn't watch any of the game. I just listened to the Twitter rants, and I'm just surprised that you come in so unprepared and listless against a rival like that. And there was something wrong with that game because it was a home underdog divisional opponent, and you're supposed to, in that situation, play the under. You're supposed to play the underdog, and there were some indicators of reasons why you don't. And sure enough, those alarm bells were right. And it just kind of surprised me. I feel I'm just happy I didn't play the Giants, but I'm going to be interested to see how they show up against Arizona, frankly. I saw some Twitter commentary that, the Giants are supposed to be a solid play. And yeah, they are. There's a lot of trends in favor of the Giants this week based on the way they lost, the margin of victory that they lost by, and a couple of other things. For me, I thought 4 was a kind of a lofty number. I'm just curious. I know one of the betting groups bet at -4, and last I looked, it was up to 5.5. My only question was whether that game was bet a little early. I don't think I don't know for sure. I just felt like there weren't going to be a lot of people looking forward to laying 4 on the Giants, and it might have been able to slip under that 4. But I could be wrong. I'm not going to stand by that. I don't know for sure. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's exactly the way I thought. Although the Giants would probably be steamed late if it went down to 3.5, I thought we'd get a tick to 3.5, to be honest.
Yeah,
My power rating support 4.5, but I thought we'd get a tick down. I mean, when you have a game that's on national TV, a standalone game, and they score 0 points, 40-0, people usually don't rush to the window to say, I've got to have that team that scored 0 points with Daniel Jones, the quarterback. I've got to have that team. It just doesn't happen. It might happen later in the week.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a common topic that comes up this year is trying to figure out and evaluate when people are choosing to bet certain games because every half point matters just so much. And I'm just seeing such an impatience with I have to do it now. Reasons that are more that are not betting related more than they are other alternative motive related, and that kind of mucks up a market. I'll give this one a pass because I don't know for sure because I wasn't looking at the board at the time because I had no internet and I was pulling my hair out, but it seemed like that was going to be hitting a 3.5. And then we're looking at San Francisco on the next game.
One chat comment first. I'm going to give this one to you. Calm 36 says, think Giants a good survivor pick. Yes or no? Would you consider the Giants as a road favorite against an inferior Arizona team? One you would consider?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, how are you not going to get the Giants at home when they're 4, 5, 6 point favorites against somebody else later on?
Yeah, probably not a good spot that I would consider either because the Giants, they're an incomplete team. The one area I would say Arizona could have an advantage is Arizona showed a pass rush last week. And again, we saw what happened to the Giants O-line this past week. So I would expect Daniel Jones. The plan is going to be that Daniel Jones will be blitzed. The question is, how does he handle it? Go ahead.
Yeah, this push up to 5.5 is not a head fake. That's a bet. So I do know that.
San Francisco Rams is another Sports USA game. So,
okay.
So we probably could. I will say this. I'll just say one thing about the game. You could comment on it. I was a little surprised the initial line crossed 7 points. I didn't see that happening off the Ram performance and off my numbers either. So I was a little surprised that's not an indication as what I think about the game and the teams. I was just surprised at the number.
Well, that number was pushed up also for the same reason that the Giants were, and I'll put that game in the exact same category of why. I mean, that was a big number. We'll have to see. I mean, we're going to have to see it. It's not going to. I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't know. My immediate reaction was why. I just felt like it could sit there for a while, but and the Rams could garner some support, but maybe not. Maybe not. Talk about it on Friday. Jets Cowboys. That's very interesting.
Let's do this first, since this was kind of a tease anyway, and got a lot of response to a tweet that I had yesterday. What do you see as the difference in how many points Rodgers is worth versus Zach Wilson?
I know what one notable person said. I'd probably put it at about 6 points, possibly. It's not quite a touchdown. I'd probably say 5 to 6 points.
That's the prevailing opinion.
But wait a minute. We don't know for sure because Rodgers wasn't comfortable with that team. He hadn't settled in. You know, we knew right away Rodgers' face, he was already pissed. He had already been rushed 2 or 3 times before he went down. I forget. and they just found the backfield instantly. And I remember thinking before he had the injury, I'm like, oh my God, this could be ugly here. So with that in mind, with the adjustment, with the getting to know the new team and all that sort of stuff, it's not a true 5 or 6 points.
Yeah, I made the adjustment much lower because I took into account these factors. Was there a difference in quarterback mobility between your first string quarterback and your second string quarterback? In this case, it's probably a little bit of an advantage to have Zach Wilson's speed versus Aaron Rodgers' reluctance to lead the pocket these days. What's your defense look like? Can your defense compensate the same way that when Teddy Bridgewater took over for Drew Brees, if you remember that New Orleans year? The New Orleans defense compensated and they went undefeated with Teddy Bridgewater off his own injury coming in, and not only held up the fort, but he did better than that. The Dallas defense compensated last year when Dak Prescott went down, and they won with Cooper Rush. Remember, they won all those games, weeks 2, 3, 4, 5. When Dak came back, he was rusty and he threw all those interceptions. And the other issue I would come into play, well, that's the big one, was the Dallas defense. I think the one issue in favor of saying that there's a gap between the two is who do you trust in the fourth quarter? And you'd probably trust Aaron Rodgers making the right read. And the turnover margin would greatly favor Aaron Rodgers being turnover averse versus Zach Wilson throwing into coverage when he had to with a game on the line. But I actually made this initially a 3-point adjustment. I think based on the spread, there's been about a 5-point adjustment made by the books. Part of that is the court of public opinion. And part of that is just that they see more of a difference than I do. Now, obviously, I circle my power rating when such a tremendous injury or cluster injury happens. I have 2 or 3 teams circled with their power rating right now. And obviously, the Jets is one of them. But I will go into this very first game knowing it's Dallas, and Dallas is really good. But in general, I made a 3-point adjustment. I could see 3.5, but I can't see 5 right now.
Well, I agree. I'm glad you brought up the defense, because when I was pausing and thinking about it, that was my initial thought was, but this defense is so good that it's not the same. It's not apples and apples with an average team. The Jets have a shutdown defense, so that was my initial thought. Was, well, then if you're going to give the offense more possessions, possibly, or you're going to get turnovers, that's going to compensate a little bit. But it's tough. We'll have to see. I like your comments. Very well said.
Yeah, it's really a difference when the defense gets involved. And I have a feeling the game plan is going to be such that they're not going to want Zach Wilson to throw into coverage because they're going to trust their defense so much moving forward. So we'll see. It's fascinating. There's so much more we could say about that. But, we're going on with Washington and Denver. What are your thoughts there?
I believe that that's the worst game on the board. Even though I do have a lot of interest in Wilson and seeing how they respond, I have to expect Denver gets the victory, and it'll probably be some boring game that I just don't have any interest in it. I just fully expect Denver to come away with this win, and it just doesn't interest me. I don't know why.
Yeah, Sam Howell was so disappointing to me last week. And the fact that this game is not 3, but it's 3.5 off a sloppy Denver performance kind of tells me which side is going to win this game. We'll see if that's accurate or not accurate. But this, if anything, first team to 20. I mean, I don't know how either offense gets to 20 without help from their own defense.
What is the total in this game?
Roughly 38-ish.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to get over that.
Yeah, it's very tough. According to I'm trying to see where it opened. It might have opened a little higher.
No, they're 39. What the? Oh, wait, I'm looking in the wrong place here. Hold on. Yeah, 38.5, 39.
Yeah, look ahead was around 41 and a half.
This game's going to be a good one. Dolphins, Patriots.
Yeah, if the Patriots lose 2 games at home to start the season, they're going to be going on. What's the thing? They're going to be without a paddle, whatever the term is. That's going to be a real problem. But on the other hand, Miami's comfortable. They play New England tough many a time. It's not going to be cold weather. Tua's in the zone. It's the fundamentally sound New England slow defense versus Miami's precision offense. So does fundamentally sound win, or does the fact that Tua unleashes Tyreek Hill win? It's a fascinating game.
Well, I think the Patriots defense can really disrupt the tempo that Miami operates optimally. So that will be interesting. And I don't think Miami's defense is as good as Philly's. So the Patriots should be able to move the ball a little bit better.
Yeah.
My initial look is on the Pats, but nothing yet. I just
yeah. If the line hits 3, I agree with one of the comments. It's kind of in the range where the line shouldn't be 3, even though it wouldn't shock me. It's one of those games where the line might be off, but it wouldn't shock me if Miami covered. I think you're going to see a heavy dose of New England running, at least to start the game, to see if they could control clock and keep that offense off the field. It's going to be a strategic battle and a very important divisional game.
One thing's for sure, you hit the nail on the head there. He's going to want to cut down the game time, and he's going to want to run the ball into the ground. And hopefully control that clock.
Doubleheader Monday.
Yeah, and I don't know why they play these things at the same time. It's just ridiculous. So I don't know. Saints Panthers. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So the Saints could win a divisional game on the road, get to 2-0, keep pace with Atlanta, who has a chance to go to 2-0. Learning experience for Carolina. Really good divisional game. I have no clue how I'm going to approach this game right now. That's my answer.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. You have a clue?
I'm
looking at my notes.
I don't know what I'm going to do, but I won't be involved betting the Saints. That's for sure. I may not be involved in the game at all, but I certainly won't be betting the Saints.
Yeah, I'm going to have to study. I want to do more study on what Carolina did with their offensive line. If they could protect their quarterback, then yes, Carolina's got a fighting chance. I expect to see Bryce Young make better decisions. I thought he'd do better than he did week 1. So we'll see how this plays out.
Well, he went interception free, didn't he?
Yeah, but he missed a lot of targets. I think it was maybe he was hyped up. Who knows? Atlanta's defense is such that you should be able to take what's given. And I thought Bryce Young didn't do a good job in that regard.
I worry a bit about the Saints on the road, and I think Bryce Young gets a little home cooking, possibly a little bit of a comfort level for him. That might be nice. But I still believe in the Saints, so that's why it's sort of like I don't want to get involved. Yeah. The Browns Steelers, now that's going to be a real hassle. That's going to be a real hassle because for so many reasons. What sense have you made out of this game?
Well, Cleveland was an unpredictable variable to me, how they were going to be, and they still are. The fact that they beat Cincinnati, they beat Cincinnati. What I liked is that the defense looks like they fixed some problems from last year, but Watson looked very average. Watson didn't look really great against a decent Cincinnati defense, not to me. Nick Chubb looked good. The wide receivers, there's a lot to like about Cleveland. The spot initially still looked favorable for Pittsburgh, Monday night bounce back and so on. But I've got to tell you, Chris, the amount of injuries Pittsburgh took, only Baltimore rivals it. They lose their number one wide receiver. They lose, I'm looking at my notes here. They lost their tight end during the game. I have a feeling he's going to play this week, but he's an important part of their offense. 2 defensive linemen went out of this game, if I remember correctly. There were hamstring issues here and there for a lot of their team. Pittsburgh's banged up.
They got nothing done on offense, and that's scary. I forget who went out that helps on the middle, but they started giving up runs down the middle in bushels. And I don't know whether you're aware of this, but the Browns like to run the ball. So how are they going to stop the Browns is my concern with Pittsburgh. And if you couldn't get the offense going last week when you were healthier, what are you going to do this week? Watson at least showed some signs of life. We talked about that last week. We wanted to see some signs of, some life. And I think we saw enough where you can either stay, you haven't seen enough, but he at least did something. It looked like he had a noodle arm at times, though, was the commentary that I kept on hearing. What do you think on that front?
I'm looking at his stats, 16 of 29 for 154. That's not good enough. That's not Watson. That's not old Watson. That's Watson still feeling his way through. So that's going to be a problem. He's got Nick Chubb back there, which should open up the pass game. So expectations for me is he shouldn't be going 16 of 29 against anybody. He should be a 63 to 65% quarterback. So I thought he still showed some rust.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly my point. But he did enough where you don't have to panic and worry that there isn't hope for him to at least get he's at least somewhat on the right track, hopefully, in their eyes. That's my only comment. He certainly didn't play well enough that's going to take that team very far. But it's compared to what we saw at the end of last season, it's miles better.
If Pittsburgh loses this game, I think we'll all agree that's a big problem. 0-2 at home, lose the division game. If Pittsburgh wins this game, I'm again going to throw all 4 of these AFC North teams in a hat and then close my eyes and pick one out and say, okay, that's your favorite. Because with Baltimore's injuries, with Cleveland still showing, even if they lose this game, I like what I've seen on defense. If Pittsburgh gets this game, it's a divisional win. I know Cincinnati's going to rebound and play better. If Pittsburgh wins, this division goes into toss-up mode once again.
Yep. I agree. So we've been through that whole schedule. Anything else stick out?
I think we covered a lot of the injuries. Let me talk about a couple. If Austin Eckler got banged up, that's an injury to keep an eye on. Let's see. A couple of offensive linemen for New England were scratches right before game time.
Yeah.
It didn't help us either, remember?
Yeah, but you know what happened? They announced that, and the line went down. I couldn't figure it out. Literally, 5 minutes later, the line goes closer to 3. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I think because those offensive linemen didn't expect to play week 1, I think that's why we had first quarter issues with New England. That's where they gave up the turnovers. That's where they didn't have the great protection and so on and so forth. And then after that, everything got better. They taught them and so on. But that was a crushing blow to me. And so we have to see what's up for this coming week. Anything else as far as there are a lot of injuries, but Carolina's cornerback, J.C. Horn, who's an emerging cornerback, he is out for week 2. So that's something to think about as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I put that in there. That's all I got, really. I mean, we talked about week 1, week 2. Is there anything else? Overreaction, we just have to be careful. I'm spending the rest of the week making sure that I don't overreact to what happened.
It's hard not to. I mean, a couple of these teams look so good or so bad. It's hard not to overreact, and I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try to have a much lighter slate this week if I can, and I think I will. I think we all benefit from watching more this week than really being aggressive here. I can't see a reason to be, even some of the, I just don't see a reason to be aggressive this week at all.
Yeah, I'm really going to be curious as whether or not offenses flip the switch and pick it up a little bit.
I think they will.
Yeah, I think they will too, but I can't get past the fact that there were so many sacks week one that offenses and offensive lines, they may have to add another guy into pass protection. I think we're seeing across the board, defenses are getting faster. I think college teams, there's more speed in the college game, and it's translating to more speed in the NFL game. So if quarterback play is down again this week, I'm going to attribute it partly to rust, but also partly due to the fact that the next compensation that has to be made by offenses this time is to protect against speed rushers.
I meant to say it earlier. It seemed like a lot of teams were basically in preseason mode. That the missed week of preseason mattered, and I think they need to play some of these guys a little bit more. What do you think about Richardson?
I think Richardson is going to be kind of in the Justin Fields category in his first year. He's going to miss a lot of throws. He's going to extend a lot of plays. I love his attitude. I expect his accuracy to be the wrong side of 60%. Let me see really quickly what he was. Let's see.
Did I mix? Was he the one that had no picks then?
He played well. He gave them a chance to win against Tennessee.
Because Russell said that Bryce Young did have 2 picks. Maybe I was thinking of Richardson that had no picks.
Yeah. Bryce Young just didn't look right in terms of the way he was throwing the ball.
Okay, he had 1 pick.
Richardson?
Yeah, 65%.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't expect that to continue, the 24 of 37, unless he continues to throw short. He threw 5 times to running back Deion Jackson, 5 times for 14 yards in total. Richardson also ran the ball 10 times, which I expect to continue. For the most part, I expect Richardson to be below 60% in passing, but I also think he extends plays very well. And if it's 3rd and 9, I wouldn't be surprised if he runs for 9 yards and gets the first down. He's that kind of, he's athletic beyond belief, but he's going to be so raw in the pass game. Let's see, he plays Houston this week. It's going to be interesting to see what Houston throws at him.
So I guess we could kind of summarize with attention to my pizza bet. I could be wrong, but if Dallas does what they did to the New York Giants every game, isn't my 50-1 on McCarthy have a little bit of hope?
Would certainly have hope. There's no question about that. 40-0 is impressive in any sport, I would guess. That's pretty good. And Dallas has every right to be considered the co-favorite with Philadelphia. I know in the betting markets, Philly is still the favorite to win the NFC East, but I would probably put them dead even. I don't know that I trust McCarthy, even though 50-1. That's a nice price, certainly. But I think Dallas is every bit as good as Philadelphia on the field.
I agree, and I'm just kind of having fun with it. I just thought that was a value bet. I don't think he has much of a chance, but it was certainly better than 50-1. Appreciate everybody joining us. We're going to be back on Friday, focusing on 2 games. The San Francisco Rams game, right?
San Francisco. We already know what the interviews are going to be for the first game, which is, what did I say? Oh, Cincinnati. Oh no, we have interviews for the second game. We have one of the better defensive backs for San Francisco in that game, and we have the rookie wide receiver who caught 10 passes for the Rams in game 1. I'll tweet that out later in the week. But don't sleep on this. The 2 guys that we interviewed, Chris Olave and Westbrook, they had great games week 1. And we did this last year. Whenever they come on our show, they tend to have good games. So I think it's. Is it a coincidence? I don't know.
Oh, come on. Are you auditioning for a late night infomercial salesman? Come on.
Yeah. No, we're just trying to get views, but maybe Ted pumps them up and makes them feel so good that they play their best on game day.
I don't know. But anyway, thanks for subscribing. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to sell you nothing. Good luck, and we'll be back on Friday. And that's it.
That's
hopefully
it.
at my
See you
house.
Next Tuesday. See you Friday. We'll have it ready to go. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.